Here are today's top stories. Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel has stepped down as Senate President on Monday, nominating Majority Floor Leader Senator Vicente Tito Sotto III as his successor. President Duterte congratulates Cebu with the opening of its oil and gas production site. The Department of Justice denies harassing the staff of former Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno. And the DFA says no Filipino casualty was reported in a mass shooting at a school in Texas. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom.
Senator Coco Pimentel III has relinquished his post on Monday, turning over the reins to Senator Vicente Tito Sotto III. In a speech, the outgoing Senate President said he was grateful that he was able to lead the upper chamber, a post his father, former Senate President Nene Pimentel Jr., has held in the past. He also wishes Senator Sotto good health and as he helps in passing legislation consistent with the legislative agenda of the President. Pimentel said after stepping down, he plans to go around the country to explain federalism to the people, calling it not just a ruling political party PDP Laban's program, but his personal advocacy as well. Majority of the upper chamber's members, or 15 of 23, earlier signed a resolution electing Sotto as the new Senate President. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Rom Dulfo.
President Rodrigo Duterte led the opening of the oil and gas production site of the Alegria oil field in Cebu. The president urged Cebuanos to use their resources to strengthen the economy and help their neighboring provinces. More on this from Janice Cave.
President Rodrigo Duterte congratulated the Cebuanos for the oil and gas production in Alegria, Cebu. The president led the ceremonial opening of the oil and gas production of the Alegria oil field Polyard 3 well site. Duterte said Cebuanos can now move forward with their own supply of oil to support the province's economic development. The president said Cebu should ensure that its internal oil requirement is secured first. He, however, reminded Cebuanos not to forget to share the resources with nearby provinces like Bohol, Negros, and Leyte. With the development of the oil field, the president urged the town officials of Alegria to improve its urban planning. Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi said the two wells of Alegria oil field can produce a total of 360 barrels per day and considers this as a major breakthrough in the Philippine oil and gas industry. Cusi said initial study shows that the oil field can support a 60-megawatt plant which can help improve the power supply of the Visayas region. The said oil field covers a total area of 197,000 hectares, with about 42,749 hectares devoted to the production area. The oil field is currently operated by China International Mining Petroleum Company Limited, with its partners SkyWealth Group Holdings Limited and Philmal Energy International Incorporated in a $30.8 million investment. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Janice Cave.
The Office of the President is set to investigate reported complaints of unfair labor practices in television networks involving employees who hold contractual and talent positions. President Duterte tasked Special Assistant to the President Christopher Bongo to look into these complaints and raise the issue with Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello III. Go bear Duterte's plan after receiving various complaints from employees of a TV network about their unfair dismissal without receiving any benefits. These employees reportedly applied for but were never given regularization. Go said his office received more complaints about unfair labor practices after Duterte signed Executive Order Number 51, which bans illegal contracting or subcontracting and strengthens employee security of tenure last May 1. Duterte has repeatedly vowed to end the practice of contractualization during his term. The Philippines and the United States have agreed to boost efforts to jointly fight terrorism and settle possible issues regarding contested territories in South China Sea. More on this from Benj Bondo.
The Philippines and United States have reaffirmed firm resolve to bolster their enduring alliance anchored on common interests and the Mutual Defense Treaty. The treaty signed in 1951 stipulates that both parties would help each other in case of an armed attack against either Washington or Manila by an external party. A high-level delegation led by Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdea discussed critical regional and international issues with U.S. Pacific Command Chief Admiral Harry Harris Jr. and the commanders of all PACOM service components in Honolulu. On the South China Sea issue, the Philippine delegation underscored that the deliberate and nuanced diplomacy of the current administration had lowered tensions in the region and resulted in clear economic gains for the country. This despite reports that Manila, including 5 Philippine military bases earmarked for development, fall within the ranges of Chinese bombers that have been deployed recently. Meanwhile, on counterterrorism cooperation, both sides agreed on the need to work closer, including in the exchange of information. The DFA said Harris congratulated the Philippines on its decisive victory in Marawi. The Philippine delegation, for its part, expressed gratitude for Washington's strong support in this effort, which was instrumental in the successful campaign. Harris has led the PACOM since May 2015 and has actively worked to strengthen Philippine-U.S. security relations. Following his retirement in June, the White House announced his appointment as the next U.S. ambassador to South Korea. For his role in promoting Philippine-U.S. defense cooperation, the Admiral was recently conferred the Philippine Legion of Honor, the Order of Defense Merit of the Philippines. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Bench Bondo.
The Department of Justice says it's ordered to issue subpoenas to the staff of former Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno is not an act of harassment. This came after Sereno called out the DOJ for summoning lawyers Maria Lourdes Oliveros and Michael Ocampo, who are part of her staff based on the graft case filed by attorney Larry Gadon. Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara stresses that issuing subpoenas to persons named as respondents in complaints is part of due process. He assesses that the DOJ will not be used to advance any political purpose. Gadon, the complainant in the impeachment case against Sereno, filed a complaint against court attorneys Oliveros and Ocampo and former IT consultant Helen Perez Macasait for violating the Government Procurement Reform Act. Gadon alleged that 6 of the 8 contracts of service of Macasait with the SC were renewed by Sereno without the knowledge and approval of the Bids and Awards Committee. Macasait's hiring was also among the allegations in the impeachment case against Sereno. The government is targeting the implementation of the national ID system this year with a budget allocation of 2 billion pesos. Presidential Communications Operations Office Assistant Secretary Marie Rafael Banaag says the Philippine Statistics Authority would establish the program together with 15 other agencies, including the Department of Information and Communications Technology and the PCOO. The President is expected to sign a consolidated version made by Congress into a law. Banaag said, once it is implemented, it can be used in transactions with all branches of government, making it more convenient for citizens to avail of public services. The system calls for the establishment of a national identification database that will gradually synchronize and consolidate all existing government-initiated ID systems into one integrated network. The national ID would contain a unique common reference number that will be given to all Filipinos along with the owner's essential information. The first attempt at establishing a universal ID scheme was in 1973. Still to come, European tourists are urged to visit alternate destinations in the Philippines following the closure of Boracay. A flyover in Cavite collapses while under construction. These and more when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Ito ang Duterte on Duty. Ulat sa ginagawa ng Presidente. May 11, Biyernes, Marawi City. Masinsinang kinausap ni Pangulong Rodrigo Roa Duterte ang 27 miyembro ng ISIS Maute Group na sumuko sa gobyerno. Iniharap din sa Pangulo ang mahigit 2,000 loose firearms na isinuko ng mga ISIS Maute surrenderers.
Mga kapatid kong taga Marawi, government talagang gusto ng kapayapaan. Hindi namin gustong pumunta dito ang gobyerno at makipagpatayan. That is a waste of time and money and the lives of people. I'm inviting the order Maote or whatever ang ipag-away dito sa Marawi. You come down and we will talk how we can improve your lives.
May 14, Lunes, Malacanang. Pinanumpa ng Pangulo sa Department of Agriculture Undersecretary Berna Romulo Puyat bilang bagong Secretary ng Department of Tourism. May 15, Martes, Taguig City. Nakiramay si Pangulong Duterte sa naulilang pamilya ni former Senate President Edgardo Angara. Kasiguran, Aurora. Dumalo ang Chief Executive sa Philippine Rice Commemoration 2018. May 16, Miyerkules, Malacanang. Mainit na tinanggap ni Pangulong Duterte sa Malacanang si Papua New Guinea Prime Minister Peter O'Neill. Sinaksiyan ng dalawang lider ang pagpirma sa Joint Declaration on Agriculture Cooperation sa pagitan ng dalawang bansa. Ako po si Secretary Martin Andanar at ito ang Duterte on Duty. Abangan sa susunod na linggo ang mga gagawin ng Pangulo.
The movement of prices caused by the train law remains manageable as tax reform is expected to add more revenue for government spending in the long run. More on this from Miguel Hill.
The Department of Finance called the uptick in inflation that immediately followed the implementation of the Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion Law as moderate or within manageable levels. Finance Undersecretary Gil Beltran said the tax reform law would support funding for the government's massive infrastructure program and social services, which are meant to keep inflation in check in the future. Beltran stresses that train is a long-term measure that would push the economy to a much higher development path, create more jobs, and improve the living conditions of our people. The chief economist said the effect of inflation is cushioned by lower tax rates and cash grants for the short term, as well as health, education, social protection, and infrastructure programs for the long term. Based on DOF data, train's effect only made a direct impact on the prices of certain goods such as non-alcoholic beverages, tobacco, electricity, gas, and other fuels and transportation. Train also pushed up inflation by only 0.4 percentage points, which is comparably lower than DOF estimates of 0.7 percentage points. Other factors such as the rise in global oil prices and the better collection of cigarette excise taxes drove inflation to 4.5% in April this year. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas expects inflation to temper and settle to 3.9% in 2018 and decelerate further to the midpoint of the target range of 2 to 4% in 2019. For the PNA Newsroom, I am Miguel Hill.
Travel agencies organizing package tours to the Philippines for the European market have been told to look for other suitable destinations in the country while Boracay Island remains closed to the public. European Chamber of Commerce Philippines President Guenter Toss says the business group has encouraged tour organizers to shift from mainstream tourism such as white beaches to outdoor activities and green tourism. Toss mentioned that he was in Europe for a tourism mission when Boracay was shut down. The ECC president said that because of Boracay's temporary closure, European tourists are exploring other destinations in Southeast Asia. According to European Union Delegation Head of Economic and Trade Section Walter Van Hattem, more than 550,000 European tourists visited the Philippines in 2017, half of whom were upscale tourists who mostly stayed in Boracay. Toss mentioned that a European tourist staying in the country for up to 14 days spends an average of $2,000 or more than 100,000 pesos. An outgoing barangay chairman who lost in his re-election bid in May 14 barangay elections was arrested during a raid against illegal drugs in Barangay Lourdes, Tarlac City. Police operatives arrested Edison Diaz, former barangay chairman, in his residence at Purok 1, Barangay Lourdes, who is on the list of high-valued targets. Recovered from the suspect were one medium-sized chocolate box containing suspected shabu, one piece medium knot-tied transparent plastic containing shabu, and two small sachets of shabu. The suspect is detained at the Tarlac Provincial Police Office's investigation unit, while appropriate charges are being readied for filing in court. A portion of the Imus flyover under construction, which spans the Daangharit and Aguinaldo Highway just next to the Ayala District Mall in Imus, Cavite, collapsed early Sunday morning. The Imus Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office reported that no one was hurt in the incident, although the collapsed beams pinned down the project contractor's Gilder beam truck, another heavy equipment vehicle, and a motorcycle. The incident also caused heavy traffic in the area. DPWH Cavite South Engineering District Engineer Sagosaya Kapal said they had dispatched additional workers and brought in machines to the site to help relocate the disconnected concrete parts of the highway. He said initial findings showed that the girder truck gave way as construction workers using the crane were lifting the 5th and 6th concrete cement portion to be connected to the flyover, thus triggering the beams to collapse. The Imus City flyover is part of the 4-lane, 45-kilometer Cavite-Laguna Expressway, which spans from the Cavitex in Kawit, Cavite to the Slex Manplasan interchange in Binyan City, Laguna. The 35 billion peso Calax Highway is set to be completed by year 2020. President Duterte met with the two policemen who were released from captivity by suspected members of the Abu Sayyaf some 2 weeks ago. The two were rescued with the assistance of Moro National Liberation Front Chair Nur Miswari, who was reportedly personally requested by the president to help in the captives' safe return. PO2 Benny Rose Alvarez and PO1 Dina Gumahad, along with two civilians, were abducted by armed men on April 29 in the town of Paticul. They were rescued on Saturday, May 19. Presidential Peace Advisor Jesus Dureza personally fetched the two PNP officers in Hulo. Also present during the handover were AFP Chief of Staff Carlito Galvez, PNP Chief Oscar Albayalde, and Sulu Task Force Head General Cirilito Sobejana. Sobejana said military operations have been heightened to rescue the remaining kidnapped victims in the island. Last week, a number of Abu Sayyaf members were killed following a rescue attempt by the military. Up next, the Commission on Human Rights calls for the evaluation of criteria for claimants of the Marcos wealth. The DFA says no Filipino casualty was reported following a mass shooting at a school in Texas. These and more when the PNA Newsroom returns. The Commission on Human Rights challenged Congress to evaluate its criteria for beneficiaries of the so-called Marcos wealth. CHR spokesperson Jacqueline De Guia reacted to reports that about 75 were junked by the Human Rights Victims Claims Board. De Guia says Congress must look into the loss of the Claims Board and settle its issues, especially the problem of transitional justice. De Guia also notes that this is a historic event where the victims of human rights violations under the Marcos regime, such as summary executions, torture, and enforced disappearances, would be given recognition. The Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, has confirmed that no Filipino was harmed in the shooting incident that killed 10 people and wounded 10 others in Santa Fe, Texas. In a statement, the DFA expressed its sympathies to the victims and their families in the United States following the tragic event. Consul General Adelio Angelito Cruz of the Philippine Consulate General said no Filipino was among the casualties in the school shooting that took place on Saturday at the Santa Fe High School located 30 miles southeast of Houston. Cruz said that the Consulate General coordinated with members of the Filipino community leaders to determine if there were any casualties among the Filipinos in Galveston Country, where Santa Fe is located. Cruz said that the attack was carried out by a 17-year-old student who barged into a classroom and started shooting fellow students with a shotgun and a revolver. The shooter is now in police custody. Reynaldo Balkman returns to the PBA after a long ban, only for his team, the San Miguel Beermen, to lose to the Alaska Aces. Vic Manuel scored the buzzer-beating game winner as Alaska beat SMB at the Lamberto Macia Sports Complex in Dumaguete on Saturday night. Manuel's runner, just as time expired, helped the Aces preserve the win despite blowing a 22-point lead. JV Casio added 18 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals, while Antonio Campbell and Calvin Abueva posted 13-point double-doubles each. Balkman's PBA return netted him 32 points, 13 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, and 1 block, but he committed 4 turnovers as well, and he only made 6 of 14 from the free throw line as SMB fell to 0 wins and 3 losses. Chris Standhardinger continued to improve his game, drilling in 22 points out of 8 of 11 shooting with 6 rebounds and 1 assist. For today's featured story, devotees once again flocked to the Manila Cathedral as the blood relic of St. John Paul II was for the second time for public veneration. More on this from Maricor Zapata.
Filipinos were given another opportunity to venerate the blood relic of St. Pope John Paul II. The Manila Cathedral held a 3-day public veneration from May 18 to 20 in celebration of the Pope's 98th birthday. The devotees flocked to the cathedral to view, touch, and pray before the Pope's blood relic. On the last day of public veneration on Sunday, the blood relic was opened for viewing from 6 in the morning to 8 in the evening. A special mass was also held at the cathedral in honor of 2 of Pope John Paul II's major advocacies, the family and life. The Manila Cathedral considers one of the 7 blood relics of the Pope as its most prized possession, especially since this is the only liquefied relic in the country. The blood relic was opened for public veneration for the first time last April. It was contained in an exact copy of the reliquary used in the beatification and canonization of Pope John Paul II at St. Peter's Square in the Vatican in 2014. St. Pope John Paul II visited the Philippines twice during his time as the leader of the Catholic Church. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Maricor Zapata.
Let's now check out the weather forecast for Metro Manila and the rest of the country. Here's another look at today's top stories. Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel has stepped down as Senate President on Monday, nominating Majority Floor Leader Senator Vicente Tito Soto III as his successor. President Duterte congratulates Cebu with the opening of its oil and gas production site. The Department of Justice denies harassing the staff of former Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno. And the DFA says no Filipino casualty was reported in a mass shooting at a school in Texas. Thank you for watching another edition of the PNA Newsroom. To check out these and other stories, visit the PNA website or follow the Philippine News Agency on Facebook and Twitter. For more stories about the government and how it serves the Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. And before we go, start your week right by starting fresh and being grateful, even for the things that didn't work out. Maybe they'll work out some other time. And that's your daily dose of the latest news and information that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. I'm William Theo. Good day.